Hi, everyone, and welcome to Architect and Intelligence. This is our new series where we'll bring together leaders, influencers, and experts who are shaping what's next across technology and in our industry. So each episode will be a conversation. It's going to be a keynote. The goal is to discuss what's changing in the market, what's driving it, and what it means for leaders to make decisions right now. We'll hear from people who are building, running, and scaling real systems along with voices who see the broader patterns across the industry. With a practical insight, that's our real goal. What are leaders seeing in the field? What are we really seeing? What are they prioritizing? What are they learning and how they're learning the hard way? If you're responsible for or interested in strategy operations technologies, these series are for you. So today's episode takes the lens into modernization and what it looks like when the business can really pause for change. And we know that's the reality, right? We're moving from rethinking to redefining modernization and why it now starts from a different set of assumptions. Modernization used to assume you could change systems in phases and absorb disruption along the way. In many environments, that assumption just doesn't hold anymore. AI and real-time operations are raising expectations across the board. The margin of error is smaller and weak foundations show faster. The practical question leaders are facing is not can we modernize, but can we keep operating while modernization happens around us? So today, I'm joined by Scott Sibert, Director of IT at Thor Motor Coach, where continuity and resilience aren't slogans, but day-to-day requirements. We're also joined by Ryan Garvelink, Regional VP of Engineering at Trace3, to help frame what this shift looks like across the market and the broader ecosystem, and what it means for leaders planning their next move. So Ryan, Scott, thank you so much for joining me here today. When you hear redefining modernization, what does that mean in practical terms? What had changed? Maybe Ryan, you can start.
So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this. Really excited to talk through this. So at Tracer, when we think about modernization, it's interesting. We surfaced last year surveys from around 100 CIOs within the enterprise space, and three themes came to the surface, one of which became modernization. And when we look at that and what organizations are tasked with, the challenge right now we've found is just keeping up with the pace of the market. The market is expanding so much more rapidly due to the onslaught of AI, and teams responsible for data, for infrastructure, they're being asked to do, so much more and so much more quickly. What previously could be something they could begin to, work through as, it was more of a common, forklift upgrade. Everything needs to now be looked at in a way to continue moving forward in a way that does not impact the business, that keeps things operating from a continuity perspective, that supports the resilience operations, and allows them to keep driving their, innovation forward without any level of downtime. That's just become something that no longer can be taken on. So as they look at their data initiatives, their AI initiatives, they need to keep moving those, forward as quickly as they possibly can.
Yeah, makes total sense, Ryan. Thank you. Scott, any comments from your side?
Yeah. Well, again, also thank you for inviting me. Really excited about participating in this. High availability and always on systems are just where we have to live now. When I got to Thor Motor Coach, one of the directives that I was given was the systems can't go down. And when I got there, we were having major data center issues. Resilience was poor, and it was creating a belief that IT systems weren't available or weren't going to be online, and so we had to hit that, correct that immediately, and now, we're living in a world where uptime is required, where system maintenance doesn't happen without making sure that we can keep all of our systems on and running. It's kind of a mandate from leadership that from now on, everything has to stay online. The business has to keep running because any amount of downtime costs money.
I think Scott, you're spot on, and actually, I was going to ask you precisely around this, because there's no doubt that the market is shifting, right? And you know, in reality, while the market is shifting, and the way you have just explained that, right? Many times, conversation still assumes that the same operating model underneath should be working, right? So which assumptions about how systems are supposed to operate are no longer, real? I mean, and we cannot really hold that at the scale. Any comments? Maybe Ryan, you can start.
Yeah. So one of the ways I like to frame this when we're talking to clients, that assumption of downtime, it's just entirely gone. If you look at the consumer market, all of us probably are interacting with social media at some point. We're being rapidly fed information, and we expect those services and our digital experiences to have zero to very low friction. And if they do observe any of those, friction, downtime, we're immediately upset. We're immediately thinking about changing platforms. We're posting about it online. And I think our personal and consumer digital experiences relate to how we're interacting, in the enterprise space as well. What we're finding is our end users and the end users we're supporting, they're expecting the exact same things for their internal systems. Access needs to be easy and simple. Availability of data needs to be ready. The systems need to be easy to interact with. And if there is any level of downtime, we're obviously impacting the business from a macro level, but also we're impacting all the users in a significant way who I just believe at this point have less and less tolerance for that based on what has shifted. So the assumption of downtime and that being something that we can accept the level of, I believe is really gone in based on the way the market's moved.
I totally agree with what Ryan just said. The consumer, the user of IT services has changed over the years where 10, 15, 20 years ago, if you waited
Yeah.
3 or 4 minutes for a process to end, that was okay. And now we live in a very fast food, very microwave society with all of our IT systems that everything has to be available now. It has to be available fast and has to be available all the time. So there are no business hours. Business hours are 24/7 because customers are 24/7. We're always selling. Our services need to be available to our customers 24/7. So it's no longer well, we just got to keep it on 8 to 5, or even in more recent years where we've got to keep it on during North American hours or whatever. No, now we've got to be on 24/7, 365 globally for those global consumers to be able to have access to the stuff that we're putting out as a business, or even in some cases to our business workers as they're selling, building, and designing what we do day in and day out.
So, Scott, let's kind of dig in a bit more on what you just said. Let's think about a real operational environment. What does this mean? I mean, this shift, what does that means for you? Like, your real operational environment. Tell me more.
Yeah, I mean, our entire environment is built around our ERP systems and our database systems and data. And even at the RV level, data is becoming so important, and data access, data activity, data being available and accurate. All those things are so important all the time that we can't live in a world anymore where we can recover from this, we can recover from that, or we can go a day or two without this or a day or two without that. Every time we try to modernize, every time we try to build or grow or expand our IT systems, it's table stakes now that what's currently there can't go down.
Yeah.
What's currently there has to stay online. So we have to figure out how do we expand, how do we grow, how do we build while maintaining all the systems and everything that we have live right now. And those challenges, especially in some of the systems that we have and some of the stuff that we do, those take quite a toll on the project, but the system just can't tolerate it. I mean, I've gotten literal directives from the few outages that we have had over the last decade. How do we make sure this never happens again? And
Yeah.
so that's how we have to approach everything that we do and how we function day in and day out.
I think if I look over the past decade, I used to architect solutions. And typically when we're looking at storage and data and compute into the enterprise perspective, the primary goal I was hearing was around performance. that was what we always needed to, design for and
100%.
plan for. And there's been a notable shift in those discussions to what now is the primary goal is resilience, availability, uptime into the data security perspective. The performance is obviously still a component, and you need to be cognizant of that, and where the dollars are going in that investment. But it's become secondary to ensuring the systems are online and I can provide the data to the business. It
In
got
a
touched on.
secure way, right? In a secure way as well, Ryan. I think that's a big one that we always get.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is paramount, especially with, the influx of how AI is leveraging data. Ensuring it's secure and governed is absolutely of peak concern.
And I was going to ask you precisely about this. Maybe Scott, you want to start, which is, hey, with this change, right? But at the same time, the acceleration that AI and data driven workloads, you know, it's our daily life, on one hand, say, on performance, but I want to make sure this secure. And at the end of the day, it's all about confidence. So, how
Yeah.
all this has been accelerated?
AI is, I mean, accelerated, I think the best word to use for AI and what AI does to business and technology, because what AI's real superpower, I think, is it's allowing a regular user to be a power user to be an expert user. It grows your skill set beyond what you currently had, and therefore you want access to more things. And what are those things? It's data. So that data has to be resilient. It has to be, highly available. It has to be accurate. It has to be secure, because these now normal users who are now power users, 20 years ago, a company might have 10 or 15 power users, but with AI, now they've got all the users are power users. Everybody's, doing deep dives into the data, into what the data is telling them, into how they can get or extract additional intelligence out of the data. So it's disruptive because it's empowered all of the users to do more than they've ever been able to do before, and to get deeper inside the data and what it does. And what that means is our ERP systems, our SQL databases, all of our data containers that we have, those have to be available, they have to be secure, and they have to be accurate at all times.
So a few thoughts on it. I mean, largely in our perspective, AI has created so much opportunity, but it's also just exposed some areas where organizations haven't always put their focus. We were just touching right before for a minute on data security and data governance. That has absolutely become paramount. Kind of like what you were saying, Scott. We've turned everyone into a power user. We've given greater access to data. We've been required to do that. We've set up a RAG architecture to really empower based on what the organization knows. How can I superpower all my employees to do something with this data? But now we've also exposed the data and that topic of governance, and we get into like a space such as, DSPM. How are we ensuring they have access to the right data? That data is available and they're able to do something beneficial with it. So the foundation for that becomes incredibly important. What we're building to scale to support this, ultimately then to protect and secure that data. So it's absolutely created new opportunities, and along with it has exposed some new challenges for us to go work around.
Well said. I was writing down here, the following word, which is in a way, modernization has been redefined. So, if that's true, which I think is true, modernization has been redefined. What should leaders design around?
One of the shifts we've noticed, I used to spend most of my time talking to IT leaders. We're
Yeah.
now spending more of our time talking to business leaders and line of business. They're the real consumers of AI. They're taking advantage of this data, we're providing them, and then using them to enhance manufacturing, HR, whatever services they're providing. I think a theme to center on that we found has been, simplification. One of the things we need to focus on is, as we're interacting more directly with these individuals as IT leaders, we need to be speaking a language they can understand. We need to be building systems in a way where we're removing legacy tech debt along the way to provide them simple services to use. And also, now, hey, here's a large data lake. Here's all the things we can do with it. Should we actually be able to do all these things? Here's maybe a view on a few things we should do. We need to be providers of these data in a simple way, to empower, the business. And I think that all supports that modernization journey of driving more insights with this, providing better services to our constituents, to our shareholders, whoever they may be.
You're making a great point, and I see that every day as well. Where the personas that used to talk to us are not necessarily the same today. Many of them, or keep talking to them, of course, but more and more line of business, business decision maker, let me put it like this, want to talk to us because they want to make sure that they modernize the way they operate, and they require AI. And guess what? AI is all about on data. And they want to make sure that they have access to that data and they can structure it the right way and they can secure. I'm sure, Scott, you have a lot of experience here. Any comments?
Yeah, I mean, what Ryan said is exactly what's been happening at our company, where we used to be talking to just one or two of the business silos. Now we talk to all of them. Now all of them have IT initiatives, or they all have goals or things that they're trying to do inside of their business units. So the IT shift has gone from really empowering one or two departments or part of the company to making sure we're empowering the entire company with what IT and AI and everything can do. And one of the things that we've really focused on to do that is trying to simplify our IT system, simplify our back end, make everything simpler, easier to use, easier to work with, that allows us to be more agile as we have business requirements or business requests. We're able to reach those requests using technology that we already have without trying to continue to bolt on more things, more servers, more software, more whatever. Let's just use what we have. Let's build on what we have, and keep moving that forward so we can provide those business requests. And at the same time, that simplification increases high availability. It increases business continuity. It increases all those other things that make the business trust, believe in, feel more secure that the IT workload's there, it's ready, and it can handle whatever they bring for us.
Scott, I want to go back. You made a comment before, right, around outages, right, and an outages event. And I will say, in your experience, when you go through that, what does that reinforce you?
Outages aren't something that you think about. It's something you should plan to happen. You should build all of your systems as if there's going to be an outage, not worrying about what might happen if there is one. So we've really done what I think is a good job of trying to make sure that we plan for that as we're building backend systems, redundancy, backups, high availability systems that we're planning on. At some point, we're going to use them. It's going to need to be active. It's going to need to be in place. It's going to need to be something that we have to use. And if we have to use it, how would we want that system to function in that case? So we don't scrimp on, well, should we get maybe a smaller system, server, or whatever, because it'll save us money and we might never use it. No, let's make sure we get the right size system to handle the outage, to handle whatever that opportunity, I guess, if you want to call it, is, so that when we're in that situation, we're not regretting, we didn't scope too small, and we're able to handle whatever that outage is to get the business back online as fast as possible.
The shift has been, when talking about, infrastructure, modern infrastructure, enterprise storage, thinking about resilience first. I do believe that's where the discussion should start. We also talked about, downtime is really something we're no longer accepting. So we need to try to build for continuity. We need to think about resilience. At Trace3, one of the ways we look at it is people, process, and technology, and how those three components come together to put together a resilient enterprise, one that can handle a level of disruption. And when we think about who is making the decision on this, what process are they following, and then how does the technology support that? If we put those elements together, we typically end up in a spot that's going to support the business's goals. Because, an outage scenario, IT, I was recently with a leader, and he mentioned during an outage, this was a CIO. He said, you won't see me. I'm going to be in the back trying to get systems online. The business leaders need to be in front of manufacturing, healthcare, whatever the business is providing to address that. I'm going to be working to get this up and running. The decision's been made, in that approach, but I think it just drives around that key fact. We should be starting with resilience. The business needs to stay online.
Fully agree with you. Well, listen, I want to thank you both for your insights and really good conversation. Time flies. We're getting to the end of the episode, and but I need to say that I really enjoyed our conversation, and I really appreciate your thoughts, your comments, and being part of this conversation. Let me try to summarize. I got some key takeaways from this conversation. I'll say, and I'll start saying, modernization is longer defined, but what you upgrade or workloads run, right? I think modernization in the AI era starts with redefining assumptions about how systems operate in real world, always on conditions. The expectation is no longer performance is an idealist scenario, but actually something far more important, which is consistency under pressure. Really like what you said, Scott. How do you prepare yourself? Because it's going to happen, right? Continuity and resilience are design requirements. The organizations that succeed are the ones whose systems keep running, even as everything around them is changing. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges that we all have, right? And that is what it takes to move from rethinking modernization to redefining it. So, look, once again, thank you. But for all the other people joining us, thank you all for joining us and for joining Architecting Intelligence. Thank you. Have a great day.